Got it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Card Shop. This is the Big Dog, and as always, I'm here with the Bearded Wonder, Mike Fruitman, and we're very happy to have us joining today. A different twist than we normally done with collectibles industry. We have Jason Hirsh, former Colorado Rocky, Houston Astro, and current development guru for budding major league stars, fast baseball. So, Jason, welcome to the party with us. I'd want to give you a few minutes just to talk about, your background and your history, give you a chance to let us know where you're from. So our listeners know who we're talking to.
Sure. So I grew up in California originally. I was a Valley boy down in the Burbank area. I actually lived I think about a mile from the NBC studios where Jay Leno and Johnny Carson got their fame from, and played baseball when I was in, coming up as a kid, played in high school. Then I went to a D3 college out in California called Cal Lutheran University. And that's kind of where everything started to click for me. Got my balance, my coordination. I grew a lot in high school. Obviously I'm sitting down, so you can't see how tall I am, but I'm 6'8". I'm 250 pounds. So like I said, I grew a lot in high school. I grew 5 inches between my sophomore and junior year. So I didn't really, in California, when you throw mid 80s, and we were talking before the show about throwing hard, right? When you throw mid 80s, you're kind of middle of the pack. You're not really anybody, especially in Southern California, right? If I was doing that out here in Colorado, I might get more looks. And obviously the atmosphere now is completely different than when I was a kid. So I ended up going to Cal Lutheran University, which is just down the road, Thousand Oaks. And that's where I kind of, made a name for myself and ended up kind of growing into my body. I ended up throwing 97 while I was there and getting drafted in the second round by the Astros. And that kind of started my major league career. And I did that for 10 years. I was part of the 2007 Rockies World Series team. I came up with Houston, like you had mentioned. I ended up getting traded to New York after I was with Colorado and played the minor leagues there. Had a shoulder injury and did all the rehab stuff, played winter ball down in Australia, played 2 weeks of independent league baseball down in Amarillo before they traded me to El Paso, and I spent 1 day in El Paso and retired. So, and that's not a knock on El Paso, but I was ready to be done.
It was this time. You can't go from
it was one of those
to El
career
Paso
moments where you go, do I really want to be here? Do I really need to be doing this? What is it really going to take for me to get out of this place? And it was a good thing I did, because 2 weeks later, they basically released half the team, changed the coaching staff, brought in all new players, and I heard it was just a nightmare. So
the independent league.
I got ahead of that curve, and I got the hell out of Dodge and got back up to here. And through that whole process, one of the reasons why I retired was my passion to play the game and prepare myself. I always took pride in the way I prepared and the way I viewed the game. And that was kind of waning. I found it more difficult to go to the gym and show up early and go home late, kind of deal like I'd always done. But when I had an athlete come up and say, "Hey, Jason, what do you know about XYZ, right? Show me how you throw this," or "I'm struggling with that." And then I would go help them in a bullpen or go watch them have success in a game. I'm like, wow, that's like the same sense of joy and fulfillment that I got as a player that I was doing with myself. So I was like, maybe I need to change hats here and switch my cleats for some turfs and see if I can influence the next generation. And that's really where, fast baseball started. It was cleverly called the Jason Hirsh Pitching Academy. Back in the day, taking advantage of my celebrity or pseudo celebrity, however you want to look at it. And I started out at a small bank. What's that?
How was your client base originally? How many people did you have leaned in with?
So I predominantly started with little kids, right? So we're talking 8 to 12, right? That was kind of my bread and butter. And realistically, I just wanted to do arm care with kids. That was really important to me. And I looked at the scene that was out here and I said, nobody does arm care. Everybody runs teams, and they still run teams, right? And that's kind of morphed from I want to do arm care to I just want to do player development. Predominantly our athletes now are high school based, and we do that for reasons as I've evolved as a coach over the last 8 years and said, you know what? Little kids don't need private pitching lessons. Little kids need to go out and have fun and develop a passion for the game that the three of us have. And, you know, they should be more concerned about who brought the post-game snack than whether or not they struck out. You know what I mean? Like things that we did. Like I was like, oh, right, sweet gushers, or, you know, fruit by the foot, or some candy that my mom won't let me have, but it's baseball. I can do it. And so that's kind of where we come from with the youth players, right? And that's obviously how I built my business and how I started it, but it's evolved over the years to now do player development, and we do it at a big league level. Like we're using technology, we're using data and science, and we're using all the research, and we're applying that to our athletes in a very knowledgeable and easy to understand way.
Interesting. Yeah, because it's funny, you talked about arm care, and all I can think about is the number of times I had a tennis can filled with sand. Right. And the number of times that, you know, you after every game you'd have
your shoulder
of ice. I got to do my circles and got your hangers. And then you'd sit there and have 70 pounds of ice on your arm, and you just like run it out.
A head full of memories. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we did that in college.
Yeah, and that was like
a big part of our like quote unquote arm care program.
Exactly. It was like run it out, long toss, run it out, and put ice on your arm. And then do your barrels, and that was arm care for pitchers.
I remember I used to ice my arm every day, regardless of whether or not I could catch, because I thought it was like what I'm supposed to do. And then I got into pro ball, and the Astros go, "Yeah, you can't ice unless you throw a bullpen or you throw a game." And my mind was like, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die! Like seriously, my career's over now because I can't ice my arm." And then eventually I figured out that, yeah, you know what? Really, I don't need to ice my arm. There's a lot of way better ways to do this.
Yeah. Now they can put you in sub 5,000 degree temperature rooms for 3 minutes.
There's a lot of other new modalities, whether it's, you know, doing manuals, you know, having somebody move your arm for you. We use something called a Mark Pro, which is like a muscle stim machine. Not a TENS unit, but a version of that.
Right.
And then we just know, again, science and data have told us that there are better ways to do things than ice. And, you know, ice is still an effective tool. It's just not the only tool.
Right.
You were in the shop the other day, and you were talking about some of the minor league experiences and the challenges with food. And I'm trying to imagine, like, were there ever like ice problems? Like, I need ice, and they're like, no, we don't have ice. Like, we ran out.
Yeah, I mean, it depended. Sometimes the other team would skimp on certain areas. Ice typically wasn't one. You know, if we ran out of ice, usually the clubby would send somebody to the local gas station to get a couple of bags. But like, you know, like our ice bags were not like a bag. It was a towel, and they would they'd put a scoop of ice in the towel. They'd fold it all up, and then you put it on, and then they'd take an ace bandage or that saran wrap looking stuff when you move your house. Right. And they put that on you and just sit there and wait. But they would usually limit ice to only the players that like actually needed it. So your starting pitcher, or maybe a relief pitcher, you know, or a position player that may have, you know, got a boo-boo during the game kind of deal.
Right.
So typically we didn't run out of ice. We ran out of a whole lot of other things, but ice was not one of those things, right? We might run out of shampoo or soap or food, or, you know, the important things, right? But now we still got ice.
Well, maybe shampoo is important for you guys, not so much for me.
Well, clearly you can call to be more economical in your life.
Yeah, I'm efficient. I got 5 minutes less every morning. I worry about anything. So, you know, it's 5 minutes I get back.
Just exactly. Just run it across your head and you're all set.
Yeah. I know you ran into Mike in the shop with your son. And, you know, just to bridge over to what, you know, we're famous or notorious, or even to call us on the show for, you know, so your son's getting into the collectibles hobby a little bit. Yep. And I'm curious, you know, you were what, AA, AAA pitcher of the year.
Yep.
And at the time that was happening, I think that was in what, the mid 90s, a little later 90s.
That was 2004, 2005, 2006.
So you had so the hobby was pretty robust then. I'm just curious, what experience did you have with, you know, weird card geeks and those types of people that wanted to have signatures and all that kind of stuff back then?
So I was a high draft pick, right? I was a second round pick out of Kalu. And I didn't, you know, I collected cards as a kid, and thanks to Mike's fantastic knowledge and his openness, I've learned that the generation in which I collected cards is largely considered the most garbage era of baseball.
Yeah, trust
card
me.
collecting.
You and me both. We were both late 80s, early 90s.
Hey, you know what? Some of my most fond memories
Absolutely.
As a kid are hanging out in the card shop and just talking with the store owner. So when I was a kid, my mom worked at a store, and then directly next door to her was a card shop. And it was real close to my house, so I could ride my bike or rollerblade or whatever. And so I used to spend countless hours over there, and we would, just look through boxes of commons, and he would talk about certain cards that he had. And then that's some of my fondest memories are hanging out with Dwight after the anthem, which is what the card shop was called.
That's a great name for a shop. I like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that far from Burbank Sports Cards and Collectibles. It was right down the road, but obviously he was a much smaller, venue than what they've got over at Burbank Sports Cards. But so like I said, that was my fond memories. And then, like I said, when my kids started getting into this, he was like, I want to go to the card shop. And I was like, well, I know like the best one in town's over here, so let's go there. So we end up over at Mike's, and he's like a kid in a candy store. And obviously, if you've ever been into Mike's shop, that there's not a shortage of things to look at in there.
Some things you shouldn't be looking at, to be honest with you, as we both know.
You could, you got there's layers. It's like an onion. You go in there, there's layers, you pull back layers, and you find more stuff.
They have those little places in the mountains where you can pan for gold. I'm convinced there's an area in the back of Mike's shop that if he would sell,
there's a Mickey Mantle rookie card in the corner.
Give you 5 minutes. There's something back there. You got 5 minutes to find it.
One day it'll happen.
The scariest moment from today will be, as Jason said, as you go into Mike's, and I'm thinking, oh God, this can go in 83 different horrible ways.
Yeah. So Jason, I will tell you that, one of the reasons, I've been in the cards my whole life, basically, but one of the reasons I did a serious and, some would argue insane spend on cards to get back into the hobby heavily was I was in Mike's shop, and I was watching people like you bring their son in, and I saw the generation coming back. 10 years before, that kind of wasn't as much the case. It was old stalwarts who were there, and they all went away, and now they're kids. I'm like, okay, now we have a hobby again.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of circle back to your original question, like when I got into pro ball, that indoctrination to sports cards, I didn't think sports cards were really much of a thing anymore. I had that gap between when I stopped collecting and, when I, for lack of a better term, when I grew up, right? And other things took precedent over baseball cards, right?
Sure.
And so, I'd be at spring training, and some dude would walk up and want my autograph. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Right. and then, like 12 more dudes would walk over with cards, and they'd want me to sign them. And I was, being a greenhorn, I was, sure, I'll sign anything you want. And then, then it started to become a little bit troublesome. I'm sitting at spring training, and this guy literally walks up with a stack of cards. There could have been 100 freaking cards, if not more. And he goes, "Hey, will you sign all these?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not going to sign all this. Like, seriously, call my agent if you want to set up a sign."
And then you're an a-hole. Then you're an a-hole.
So then I've morphed. I went from nice guy to a-hole, right?
Sure.
And then I met some guys. And then we'll call them autograph hounds or whatever their official title would be. And I got to know them a little bit because they were always at the ballpark. Yeah. And it was mostly when I was here with the Rockies, and they're guys I still talk to and still know today. They're awesome dudes, but they kind of gave me the background on what these autograph guys do, in that, the West Coast guys have West Coast players and the East Coast guys have East Coast players, and they trade cards. And then they say, all right, East Coast guy, well, Jason Hirsh is playing out in LA. Can you get Jason to sign, this card? Because I'm never going to get out to LA. And so you sign that, and then they trade these cards back and forth. Right. And that way, guys who are, true collectors, they put them in their collections. But, as a player, and you start to see the type of individual who I'm giving the autograph to, or the memorabilia piece that they want me to sign, most of the time it becomes blatantly obvious what the intention of this
Yeah.
autograph is for. Like, I'm happy to sign a card for a kid, and I'm happy to sign a card for somebody who's going to put it in their collection. But you got to be annoying when when some guy wants me to sign 15 pieces of memorabilia so that he can put them up on eBay, you know, or
Right.
sell them at his shop or something like that. And so that's kind of where that line got crossed. And I remember there was a time I was out in Rochester, New York, and there was a rumor going around that there was a teenage boy who was hiring these little kids to come up with baseball cards and balls and have guys sign it as they were walking to the ballpark. And then they would take that memorabilia back, and that kid would pay the kid like $1 or give him a sucker or a piece of gum or something like that. And so we caught wind of this. And so as we were walking through, there's like 4 or 5 of us, and this little kid comes up and he wants us to sign all these cards for him. And I'm like, go back and tell your boss over there no. And he got pissed, and he came over and started cursing us out, that and the other. I'm like,
Sure.
Sorry, I called your bluff, dude. Have a great day. And, you know, we just walk on by. So, you know, I think there are genuinely good people out there that do this for a living. And then there are genuine scumbags that don't deserve my time. So, you know, and as a player, we just had to kind of figure out who was who.
You know, what's funny, Mike goes through this all the time in the shop because, you know, for most of the pandemic, there was this mad Pearl Jam tickets go on sale Thursday type activity was happening at Target and every place else.
Right.
And these guys would come in and they'd maraud the retail boxes, and then they'd come in and sell them to Mike. And, you know, some of them are just trying to eat, but some of them are exactly the same scumbags that are sending kids to get autographs. And you can't tell who's who. It's just, it's a tough go. And it's hard to manage that type of activity. And it's just with everything else, there's money to be made. You're going to get the special ones.
Well, and you know, cards right now is big money.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest glaring difference between when I was a kid and could buy a pack of Donruss for a quarter versus, you know, now I've got to spend $25, you know, to buy a pack of Donruss or something like that. And so it's, you know, the hobby itself. Like I was watching a box break last night on Instagram. It was a box of 2020-21 Prism basketball. And the guy's like, and then somebody asked like, how much is a box? And dude's like $16.50. And I'm like, wait, like $16.50 or like $1,650, you know, for a box of, you know, it was hobby. So it was, you know, I don't know, it was what, 8 or 12, it was 12 packs of 12 cards. And I'm like, holy cow, who can afford this hobby anymore? Like you're getting into the high end stuff. Like, you know, my kid he'd have to save for a month just to afford one pack of his allowance. So that's where I kind of wish that maybe there was a
me too,
entry level tier for kids who want to get into the sport versus, you know, I'm assuming, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the types of guys that are collecting now are very similar to you and I that were huge card collectors back then, but now we've got a shit ton of money and we can spend it on the hobby versus you know, when you were a kid.
Going with what you're saying there is an aspect that's designed for kids. Panini makes it an item called the Kids Crate. The first one has 2 football blaster or or hanger boxes, and also a soccer box. So they're trying to represent a variety of offerings that they do, and it's got some cool stickers and other things in there. We sell those for $59, and we only sell them to kids. Like if you don't bring in your kid, you can't have one. So we take pictures of those. And Panini's aware of what's going on. Obviously, they offer secondary pricing or SRP pricing on day of release. So they're aware of where the market has gone, and this is one of the efforts that's been done to make sure the kids can still collect.
Yeah, like I said, I go into any card shop and I'm like, yeah, let's get a pack of cards, and I'm like, oh, hold on, let me take out my mortgage real quick.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Capital One sponsors our card.
$1,500 for a box of cards is literally a mortgage payment. And there were guys that were buying 2 or 3 boxes last night just by themselves. And, you know, and then I see like the pricing on certain individual cards that are going for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and I'm like, you know, this is legit. Like it's a legit high-end business. And Mike, you know, when I came into the shop many moons ago in that rainy day, and you know, I asked you how business was going. He goes, I hate to admit it, but it's freaking awesome. You know, this is the middle of the pandemic. So, you know, and I love that the hobby has taken off again and it's gained this popularity, but it seems to have, like, in my mind,
too far.
kind of skipped it skipped a level and went straight to
Yeah.
elite level status instead of like, hey, we're going to build ourselves up. But you know who I used to listen to Gary Vee all the time. This was years ago. And he kept saying sports cards is the next
Yeah.
big thing. And now I look at this and I went, shit, I should have listened to Gary Vee way back then.
Yeah.
I should have got in at the ground floor.
So,
Yeah,
so
I
you're
kind
wa-
of put bets. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
so you're watching breaks last night. Was that something you were doing with your son, or is it just?
Well, he wasn't around, and I, you know, guiltily watch it because, you know, it's a weird conundrum, right? Like I'm an adult, I'm a grown man, and I'm watching somebody else open baseball cards that's not me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I sit there and I have this conundrum in my head because I go, I crack on my kids for watching YouTube of dudes playing video games.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? This is the adult version of you. I'm watching another dude open baseball cards because I want to see what he's going to get. And you're watching a little boy or another kid play video games because you want to see him beat a level or, you know, get a kill or whatever it might be. I'm like, I'm just the adult version of you now.
Yeah.
But
I've always tried to convince myself it's like watching the World Series of poker.
Enthralling because it's like gambling, right? It's
exactly.
That's what this is. It's, you know, you're spending big money on a box of cards and hoping that there's, you know, a one of one LaMelo rookie in there that you can sell for $80,000 somewhere down the road.
Yep. Yep. To me, it's the reason World Series of Poker gets high ratings on ESPN. That's where I go, as I go to the gambling side. And as one of the people who was, as Mike can well tell you, I heavily invested in 2008, 17, and really in 18 in basketball but the high end stuff. And I was one of the guys picking the top end off. The fear I have is the fear you have. And I know Panini and these guys get it. Hopefully Fanatics gets it. And that is that if we don't start manicuring and creating opportunities for kids to get into the hobby the way they could, we are going to have this gap again. Because when they turn 45 and have had a successful career and have money, they're not going to be able to fulfill their childhood fantasy because they don't have that one.
Right.
So
100%.
we've got to figure that out somehow.
Yeah, 100%. You know, if you could do packs that were like $2 or $3 a piece and, you know, put a special hit in there every so often just to make the kid feel happy about it. You know, I didn't have that joy when I was a kid. Like a hit was getting like an all-star card. Like we didn't have inserts, you know what I mean? Like that.
Yep.
Like that whole content, I get it. They've done a brilliant job of marketing it, you know, to put all the different variations in there. And, you know, at this point again, this is an outsider looking in, and I'm very, very new to, getting back into the hobby. But, you know, base cards mean nothing. You know, rookie base cards are slightly more important, but it's all about the inserts and the autos, you know, and finding those rare one-offs or of 10s or of 25s. Like, you know, like I said, I was watching that rip last night, and he's just he couldn't thumb through the top cards fast enough to get to, you know, the inserts that were in there. It's like, oh, I got a blue this and a purple cracked ice and base card, and we're done. I mean, he rifled through a $1,600 box in 3 minutes, and I was like, that was not exciting at all. Like, I know what you found, and they're probably worth, I'd hope they're worth at least $1,600 total, but but I'm like, it was so unimportant that everybody's just seeking that one piece, that one hit that they can then throw on social media and get more people to follow and get into the hobby.
And that's the commoditization that's happened heavily. I mean, you've got the low end, you got the high end. You know, I'm one of the degenerates that goes after like national treasures and flawless and this crazy stuff. And, you know, it's funny, you know, we saw all the stuff with AMC and other like GameStop with, you know, Robinhood, where people were out buying fractional shares. Right. And one of the reasons online breaking has gotten even bigger than it already was because, you know, all these high-end products are like $2,000 or $3,000 a box. Right. And there's not that many jackasses like me that can afford to buy an entire box, but people can throw a couple $100 at a 1 in 10 chance of changing their life.
It's a gambling piece, right?
It's a gamble. It's this gambling in video. And because it's video, it's very well documented. The risk is low because you got the accountability of the video evidence. Right. So for the high end, I think it does that. It creates accessibility, but a little kid doesn't have $100, and neither you or I is going to let our kid bet $100 to win 10,000. We're not going to do it.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I would
the reason
feel
you have to
pretty
get
bad
18
if
buy
I
a
got
lottery
into one of
ticket.
those drawings and Mike pulled my name out and the three teams that I got, for that box breaker, like the three worst teams ever. I mean, obviously that's not how they're staggered. Like the one I was
Right,
watching, they have tier one, tier two, and tier three. So you're
right,
trying to get high end teams. But if it's like, I got my high end team was, let's just call it the Braves, right? And then
right.
again, I do everything through the lens of baseball, and I know
Sure,
baseball's like way
sure.
down the list right now in importance of baseball of cards. I
Yeah,
just call them baseball cards, right? But
yeah.
like say I get the Braves and I got the Rockies and I got the freaking the Royals or something like that. I'm like, dude, I just gave you $300 to open a box of cards to get three teams worth of players. There's not a single player of value in there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but that's part of the gamble,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is.
And some of those products have throwback cards in them too. Like, the
Yeah.
ones I was watching last night, they had some throwback sports cards of like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, like that's cool, but they're obviously clearly not worth the excitement of rookie players and special one-of-one inserts.
Yeah.
One thing I really wanted to talk about this morning is so you've got a number of signed cards from your rookie season.
Yeah.
You've got Bowman Chrome, you've got the one with the TV on it that looks like the 50s TV.
Yeah.
You're
That was a
top
Bowman.
five. Sorry?
That was a Bowman product also. It was a horizontal one.
So what is as the shop owner who talks to collectors, so I don't get the experience of knowing what it's like when you get that package in. Well, first off, what you got your first card? What was that moment like?
It's surreal, right? Like that's what you've always dreamed of, is having your own baseball card.
Right.
When I got drafted, I remember taking pictures for Topps. In fact, the photographer who took my picture ended up being a good friend of mine for a long time. So I kind of got to learn a little bit of how that side of the industry works. But I remember I was in Williamsport. I was in Williamsport playing the Crosscutters, not in the Little League World Series, right? But they actually have a minor league team in Williamsport also. And I remember the guy he's like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so from Topps, and I need to take your picture for a baseball card." I was like, "Oh, okay." So we went out to the wall and tried to find a nice clean backdrop, and he shot a picture. And then, I don't know how much later the cards showed up, and I went, that motherfricker took a picture from like down here, made me look like I have 7 chins. And that's what they used on the baseball card. I'm like, I look like the goofiest, fattest person in life. And I was like, this is my first card? Like,
and he's
really?
still a friend, huh?
So it was I think it's a Topps, it's got to be a Topps card. It's got a red background to it, and I'm sitting there like I've got my hand in my glove, and I'm clean shaven because I didn't grow facial hair back then. Mike's been growing facial hair clearly for a while, but I'm sitting there holding it. I'm like, all right, that's a decent card. But then there's a variation. It's got a yellow background, and maybe this was Upper Deck, but they had me sign stickers and they put the stickers on the cards. And those were like the special ones. And I've actually got one of my buddies bought me a graded 10 version of it.
That's cool.
Like $80 and gave
That's
it to me.
cool.
So I was like,
That's
that's pretty sweet. I've got one of those. But that was like my first card, was like just me like tucking my chin up underneath and smiling. And I'm like, God, that's a terrible picture. And then, when I got to the big leagues, the card side changed dramatically, right? We had
Right.
team sets for the minor leagues that we were in, and they didn't do like up and coming stars or things like that back then. It was very simple. So once I made my debut in 2006, then then the cards started coming. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I was still in college. I remember doing this. So after I had signed, Bowman / Topps wanted me to sign. I got a deal with them. It was like they were going to pay me 50 cents a card or $1 a card or something like that, right? So they had this dude drive it was a 3-hour drive. He came to Southern California. I think he came from down in or like out in the Inland Empire somewhere in California. he drove for 3 hours with like 5,000 cards, right? And he shows up in my dorm room and he's literally got to watch me sign every
Right.
single
Yep.
card. And so I'm signing cards, and I'm like, oh, this will be quick and easy, right?
Yeah. The
I
first
started
100 are
out
that
signing,
way.
like you can actually read my name.
Yeah.
And then eventually it just got to like first initial, last initial, and some squiggles. And that's really where I learned how to sign a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think I got through about 2,000 cards, and I'm like, my hand, it doesn't work anymore. It's numb.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think I ended up I think I signed 3,000 cards in that first sitting. Right.
Wow.
And the guy's like, all right, I got to come back tomorrow. And I'm like, listen, dude, do you really want to drive 3 hours to watch me sign baseball cards? He goes, no. I'm like, why don't you just leave them here and I'll sign them? He goes, you promise not to have your freaking roommates or buddies sign them for you? I was like, no, they don't even know. They don't give two rips about what this is. So he left and I ended up signing the rest of them. I ended up signing 5,000 cards. But the cool part, and I got to find them. I know they're somewhere. On the front of each box was a card, like a demo card, right?
Right.
And I was supposed to, like, that's what was in that box.
Right.
So it got, it went from, I think there was green, gold, white, silver, and red. And the red was a 1 of 1.
Right.
Well, it was really a 1 of 2 because there was a demo card on the front, and then the 1 of 1 card was in there that I actually signed. And the guy said that I could take that demo card. So I actually have the other one. It's probably not numbered, but I have it somewhere. I think it's at my parents' house or it's somewhere in a box. I just moved here to this house a few months ago. It's somewhere, but I have like all of those demo cards I ripped off the front of the box before I sent it back to the dude.
That's awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, that was like, the mass quantities of cards that got signed. And that's what was, I'm like, this is for real. Like, these are my cards and that's my signature. And people are going to be hopefully excited to see, this when they open a pack.
Now you've got guys like Giannis saying, I'll sign 100 cards, but I get to keep 100 as well. Or signing them and just keeping them and saying, here's your check. I'm keeping all these. And it's come a long way.
With as valuable as cards are now, frick, if I'm being honest, I'm signing a 1 of 1 and putting it in my pocket and I'm saving it for retirement.
Yeah.
So every time you see that card now, when you sign 5,000 up, you cringe? Are you like, oh God, that
you have PTSD?
No, you know what? Because I guess I don't see, for some reason, people keep sending me cards to sign.
Right.
I'm like, I think I've signed all these cards already, at least one time. But yeah, I don't see a ton of them around. Maybe on eBay every so often one will pop up, but sometimes guys still send me cards. Like we have a big pro ball group online on Facebook, and Pat Neshek, who I don't know if he's been on this show or not, but he's a huge card collecting guy. He's kind of set up a kind of a back channel portal for collectors if they want to get a certain player's autograph. They get the address where to send it, and they're supposed to send $5, to that player as kind of a, thanks for doing this kind of deal, where it's not just, hey, I just want you to sign my card, but there's a little bit of money in it for the player. So every so often I'll get one like that. But yeah, the cards that I still see floating around, I'm super proud of them, and I love seeing them when they come in the mail. Because there's still some variations out there that I don't have. Especially there's a horizontal one where I'm like pitching, and I really love that card, but I know there's like a green and a blue and a red and a silver, and I've only got a couple of variations of those.
Do you want to leak out how people can send you cards? You want to keep it on the down low?
We could. I don't know. Do you guys do like show notes? You put my email in there, or?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'll put your email in the show notes.
All right. Yeah, why don't we just do that, and that way, if they want to send me a card, just shoot me an email, or you can send it. You can always send it to the facility too. I can put my address on there, and if they want to send cards and send them, I'm happy to do that. Don't send white index cards ever. You'll never get a single. There will never be a single player in professional sports who will ever sign a white index card. That is an invitation for identity theft. So don't try to do it. Don't say you collect it. Don't give me some bullshit. fucking form letter that's here, and then have an underscore there where you wrote in my name, and then I'm your biggest fan. Like, give me the sob stories, just give me the card, I'll sign it and send it back. Like, I've seen them all. Like, I'm the hugest fan, and they write my stats out. Like, I somehow don't remember my stats. I'm like, listen, dude, I get it. Like, don't bullshit me. Just give me the card and say, hey, will you sign this, please? Please and thank you. And I'm happy to do it for you. And I think 99% of people out there would love that same approach.
Yeah.
If
I can tell you, I have a Nigerian
type
banker.
letter that's 8.5 by 11, both sides, I ain't reading it.
Yeah.
Don't send more than like 3 or 4 cards, because the extras go into my collection.
I have a Nigerian banker I'm still waiting for money from. So, they're all out there. And,
he won the lottery. It's amazing. He keeps doing it.
Yeah. If someone sent me an index card and said, sign it, I wouldn't. And I'm nobody. So, that's how this game works.
Yeah.
I always thought the standard was you send 2 cards and you expect to get one back. I always thought that was the way to go.
Yeah. I my rule is 3. I'll sign 3 cards and send them back. If you send me more than 3, then I'm going to keep either what I don't have, or I'm going to keep whatever I don't sign and either give it to a kid in the facility, or if it's something that I don't have in my own collection, it goes in my collection. And a lot of times, people will they'll send a whole bunch of cards and be like, hey, keep whatever you want, and cool. Sign whatever you want. And like, all right, that's cool. Like, sometimes I've seen cards and I'm like, that's cool. I've never seen that one before. I'll take that one and send you the one that there's 12,000 of back. And then I think most people are just happy to get the autographs. A lot of times I'll personalize them. So, Mike, if you sent it to me in the mail and you said, hey, will you sign my car? I'll write to Mike, and then I'll sign it underneath. And, that way there's a little personalization there. It also potentially keeps that card from ending up on eBay, unless you're selling it to a club of Mikes. Right? Yeah.
Jason, my favorite thing I've got actually is, so Mark Ruffalo's uncle worked with me at my company, and we would always have auctions for charities at the company and stuff. And I got Mark to sign a poster of Zodiac, the movie poster,
right,
personalized to me with his favorite line from the movie, which is, "That's a nice watch. May I see it?" Because that was where he knew the guy was the killer.
Right.
And so I had that personalized, and that's like, that thing means the world to me, because it was to me and all that stuff.
Well, there's a personal connection there, right? It's not just
absolutely
line, this, that, or the other. You met him, and that creates a connection or a bond to that piece, and you'll never sell that ever.
Exactly.
And that's I think what makes part of the hobby great, is having those personal interactions with people. And that's something that, when I was a player, it was usually me, Clint Barmas, and Jamie Carroll. Unless I was pitching in the game, every day I would go out about 40 minutes early before the first pitch, and I would walk down the right field line and sign autographs for every person that was there. And I'll tell you what, that I met a lot of great people doing that were, one, very thankful for me spending my time going out there, because there were other players on our team that didn't do that, and for obvious reasons, right? Like Todd or Tulo or Holiday and those types of guys. They're going to get mobbed by people, and it's going to be a madhouse. But I made it a point that even the most benign autograph to whatever little kid might be the biggest difference in the world. And when I was my first year in Houston, I was in the elevator with Andy Pettit and his family, and we were going downstairs to the game, and I said hi to his kid and shook his hand. And then I think I signed a ball or a card for him or something like that. And they came back. Then Andy went back to New York, and I came here to Colorado. And when we played the Yankees in 2007 and we swept them, we went out I was out in center field, and Andy and Roger came out there, and we were talking and exchanging formalities. And Pettit told me, he goes, "Dude, my kid still talks about that time that you talked to him in the elevator and gave him the autograph." And I'm like, does that kid know who his dad is? Because his
dad's his dad, Jason.
Never was.
His dad's his dad, though. That doesn't count.
Right. Yeah. His dad doesn't know crap and he's the worst player. Like, yeah, I get it.
Exactly.
But it's those types of benign interactions that can make a huge difference in a
Yeah.
kid's life. And through the years, I've had, kids that have come either through the facility, or I've had parents that have come up and talked to me and said, "Hey, you signed an autograph for my kid way back in the day, and it meant the world to him." And I was like, dude, that's what the sport's all about. Like being able to share those experiences and those interactions
And the interactions,
personal touches to a certain piece of memorability that brings back, a rush of emotions or a thought that, of a great time. Obviously, '07 was a great time for the state of Colorado.
So I want to go with that as the Rockies fan here. So you guys went on that tear. We had Brad Hopp in the shop in early September, and we had him in, and we didn't obviously know we were going to win 21-22 or 22-23. At that point, season was kind of okay. We had a good season. We're not not in last place, but that run you guys went on was monumental. That was insane. What was that like, and how electric was that at that time?
You know what? We didn't really know what was going on until we were in the middle of it. But I do remember there were certain things that happened during that run where we just all kind of looked at each other and went, something's weird's going on here. Right? Like whether it was, like starting pitching would just pitch out of their minds, or, the offense would go off. And I think there was a game that we played against the Marlins here at Colorado where I think we came back. We were down 7. We came back and won the game. And I don't know if it was in extras or in the bottom of the 9th or whatever it might have been. And I remember walking up the stairs back to the clubhouse, and Jeff Francis was next to me, and we both looked at each other and laughed. And we go, who's going to do it tomorrow? Like that was awesome. The mentality, right? It was like, who's stepping up tomorrow? Is the pitching going to be rock solid, or is the hitting going to come through in a clutch situation, right? Like what is the phenomenon that's going to happen tomorrow? And that's kind of, I think, how everybody was. We were so in the midst of it that we didn't really have time to think about it. But it was one of those deals where, obviously we went on a tremendous tear, and all of a sudden the national media is getting a hold of us, and and then we're playing 163 at home, and it's one of the most exciting games that's probably ever been played in we'll call it postseason history. At least it was for me. I remember going back and watching videos that people had posted on YouTube of that game from the stands and their reactions, and it gave me chills. And it still gives me chills watching how insanely passionate fans were during that time. And I think that's one of those things as a player. And obviously here in Colorado, we have a massive stadium that holds 50,000 people. The kind of energy that fans can bring to a game, I don't think they understand what it's like when fans are rowdy and when they're behind you and when they're chanting. And, we see it now when the Dodgers come to town, or the Yankees or the Red Sox, and the fan bases that travel, the Cubs, they travel in these massive packs, and they show up, and they're loud and boisterous. And Rockies fans just kind of sit there on their hands and they're like, yay, like we're the Rockies, or, it's just not as passionate from that standpoint. But during the playoff run, man, this town was incredible. That they would bring to those games was, you couldn't even hear yourself. They were chanting so loud. I wish we could find a way to bottle that, even if just it was once a month, like have that opening day atmosphere, where you're like block party downtown, we're going to the ballpark. Like this is going to be an amazing experience, regardless of how good or bad the team is. But just getting the fans there and having that buzz in the stadium is something that really helps us as players. It's not a measurable thing, right? We can't measure that, but it's just a feeling. It's an aura. It's, you can feel that, like the hair starts standing up on your arms when you walk out and there's 50,000 people there, and you're like, well, shit, there's a lot of people here that watch us play. This is cool.
From that run, what's weird about it to me is I remember, some of the victories here and there, but the biggest memory I have of the regular season that year is Tony Gwynn Jr. for the Brewers. They had to win that game, and he comes back. And here's Tony Gwynn Jr. It's just kind of magical. He's the reason we ended up getting into the play-in game.
Yeah, he hit that triple. I think it was against San Diego when he was playing for Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And we actually had talked about sending him a bottle of Dom as a thank you. And And come to find out that it was illegal. We weren't allowed to send gifts to other players for helping us win and get into the playoffs. But I think a lot of guys on the team who knew him sent him congratulatory text messages or phone calls as a substitute for a bottle of champagne.
So
Yeah,
not to mention
okay.
you were hoping for, but getting to the World Series. I mean, I mean, how crazy! I mean, you're waking up, and you're like, okay, my team is going to be in the World Series today. I mean, just.
I mean, that was part of that run where we were doing stupid things that we shouldn't have been able to do, right? Like we roll into Philly and take, sweep them in 3. And then, the Diamondbacks come into town, we take 4 straight out of them. And, I think we were having that kind of ethereal experience. We were out of body and just playing the best baseball of the season at the exact right moment. And there's a lot of mechanics that happen behind the scenes too. Obviously, national media starts to show up more frequently. Guys like Woody Page crawl out of their houses and finally show up into the locker. There's something of importance going on in Colorado. That means I can go talk to them now.
Right.
But that's like there's more cameras, there's more people. Now there's more press badges. Now there's more fans. There's more memorabilia going around. And then there's behind the scenes meetings that we're having as we advance each level where, we had everybody who was basically in the big leagues from June prior. So basically from spring training to June. We all sat in a room around conference table and we had to divvy up playoff shares. We had to figure out how much money that we were going to give to each other and then how much money we were going to give to our auxiliary, personnel. How many shares were we going to end up having to divvy up? And that was a very interesting experience that I didn't even know that kind of thing happened. But LaTroy Hawkins, who's a veteran and had been through it before, he kind of walked us through the process because a lot of us were really green on that stuff. We're here like, hey, we're going to give the Bat Boy a quarter share or, and then as for fans out there who are watching, every level that you move up, the share gets incrementally larger, right? So, you make the playoffs, there's a playoff share, and it might be $10,000, might be a full share, right? And then you advance to the DS, right? The division series, maybe the bonus is now 30 grand, right? And then you go to the National League Championship Series, you win that. Now that bonus might be 100 grand, right? Then you get to the World Series, and the World Series winning share, I think was just under 300,000 or 250, 280,000, something like that. It was, and that was actually considered small at the time because Boston has the smallest capacity stadium in Major League Baseball. Right. So, and in the way that playoff shares work, it works off the first 3 games of ticket sales. And then that share gets divvied up amongst the teams and then eventually the players. So I think when we had started, we were giving our Bat Boy like a quarter share or something like that. We're thinking like, yeah, that'll help him out in college. Right? And then we get to the World Series and we're looking at the shares and going, dude, that Bat Boy is getting about 100 grand. Do you think he's worth about 100 grand right now? He's a 16-year-old kid. And so like, all right, let's give him, I think we gave him a flat, like, I don't know, I think we gave him like 10 or 20 grand out of the whole deal, which obviously is phenomenal, right? We're talking stupid amounts of money and numbers right now. Yeah. But I think when it all got done at that end of that World Series run, we were the most generous team in Major League history in terms of the number of shares that we handed out. There were like 80 some odd shares, which had never been done before. But again, those are all parts of that playoff experience that I had never expected to be a part of. And then obviously the World Series was insane. Just again, the amount of people in the media and, we're in Boston and, the clubhouse in Boston's about as big as my office, which is freaking tiny. Like outside of all the players, there might be room for 5 more people in there. And somehow there's 50 media people in there that want to talk to you. But just being able to be there, be part of it. I had a broken leg at the time. So unfortunately I didn't get to pitch in the World Series. I had a broken leg in August off a comebacker from JJ Hardy. We can go into it another time, but that just being kind of like being part of the team, but also being an outsider and seeing how the fans reacted, that was a really magical time.
Sean, did you go to those?
I went to one game. I was able to secure 2 tickets to one game, and I was very far away from the field. But that was remember that if you remember anything about the World Series, there was a debacle with how they issued tickets to the public, and it literally a guy in Boston had an equal chance to somebody in Colorado of getting a seat to the game. And Boston has a pretty loyal fan base. As I jokingly say, if the Pittsburgh Steelers played baseball, it would have been all Steeler fans at the game because they just flooded it, and it was ridiculous. I had to go secondary, but I was like, I'm not missing the World Series. I was lucky I got to see when the Reds beat the Bash Brothers when it was Canseco and McGuire, and it was like 91, 92. I was able to I was doing an audit in Southern Indiana, and we drove all the way across the state of Indiana to go to Cincinnati to see, I think it was game 2, the Reds and the A's, when the Reds beat them. And that was my World Series experience. So I was like, I want to get one in my hometown and, let's go take it in. And the experience is phenomenal. Having been to a bunch of Super Bowls, nothing matches that one game and it's over type scenario.
Right.
But the majesty of the World Series itself and how it's a matchup and the adjustments and everything that happens, it's just amazing to watch. It was fun to be a part of it.
Yeah, leave it up to MLB to screw up tickets.
Yeah,
Screw up anything.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have a party talking about the Rockies and their management and all that stuff. That's never going to be fun. But yeah, it's just a fabulous thing. I mean, we got lucky enough to have, thanks to some things that happened in Atlanta, we got to have the All-Star game this year, and that was I don't know if you went or you attended.
I threw batting practice for the Futures game.
Oh, so awesome.
That was kind of a cool experience for me. I had Zach Rosenthal, who's the AGM. He called me up and said, hey, we've got all these things going on. We've got basically 3 months to plan an all-star game and we need help. And so he goes, I'm reaching out because I know you know a bunch of locals, and they were trying to, they had to reconfigure Hawkeye to track multiple balls in the air for the home run derby. So if you're not familiar, for listeners out there, Hawkeye is the ball tracking system that gives you basically all your StatCast metrics. It used to be a company called TrackMan, I think 3 years ago, and then they switched over to Hawkeye because it's more accurate. So we had to go, I think we did 3 mock home run derbies at the stadium. I brought out a bunch of local high school and college players to help us out, and then we throw batting practice to them. And we were trying to create certain scenarios that might potentially happen in the home run derby. And we were doing it during the day. We were doing it under the lights, and they were configuring the system on the back end. And so we got to do that a bunch with some local guys. And then they said, hey, I need a catcher for the prospect game. So I was like, all right, I got one of those guys. We'll check that off the list. And, I need a bunch of guys to be able to throw batting practice for both sides in the futures game, for the prospect game. And I need a catcher for the all-star game in the bullpen. I was like, all right, I'm starting to check off all these lists. And within 24 hours, I had everything full of local guys that were being able to go to the ballpark and help out. So one of the jobs I kept for myself, which in reality, I probably should never have done it, but I threw batting practice, poor guys. I threw batting practice to a group during the futures game, and I'm terrible at throwing batting practice, come to find out. I think I hit a dude 3 times, and I almost hit Ryan Vlade in the head probably 4 times. Clearly, I'm not very good at throwing batting practice. But to my credit, and I'm going to wear this one because I think it was because of me, the guy in my group who clearly was not very good at hitting me won the MVP of the futures game because he hit 2 bombs. I'm like, listen, I was just prepping him. I'm like, he couldn't hit me because clearly I'm way too nasty. But the dude throwing 98 that he hit a bomb 20 rows into left field, that was way easier compared to hitting batting practice off me. So I take full credit for that. Now, on the other side of it was after I got done throwing batting practice, they said, "Hey, you want to hang out in the dugout for the game?" And I'm like, yes, I do. So they gave me a uniform, my name on the back, the whole nine. And I just, I don't want to get in the way of the game. But it was really ironic for me because in 2006, I started the futures game for Team USA in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool that, we get the opportunity to have it here. And what was it, 16 years later, or whatever, I'm back at the futures game, a place where basically my career started. And
awesome.
Here I am, back in a dugout with the next generation of ball player. I thought it was really cool.
So did you get autographs from all of them?
No. Listen, I didn't want to press my luck.
Yeah, exactly.
None of these guys really care who I am. They just watch me throw batting practice. Clearly, I'm not very good at it. So, I didn't want to press my luck because you know what actually happened, and I'm really mad at myself that I didn't take more advantage of it. But Ken Griffey Jr. walked into the dugout,
sure.
and so our coaching staff was Vinny Castilla and I think LaTroy was on the other side. But anyway, like we had a bunch of the coaching staff, and Griff walks into the dugout, and I'm sitting there going, "Dude, that's Ken Griffey Jr. Like that's like one of my childhood idols. I should probably go get a picture with him." And he started talking with dudes, and I'm like, I didn't do it. And I should have just like pulled my phone out and done the whole like spectator sport thing, but I didn't do it. And I'm going to kick myself for not doing it.
So Jason,
like in my brain, that's what my memory is.
This came, I got this from, you can barely see it.
Hey,
it was at the Topps Transcendent party 2 years ago. So at PSA, when you do that, they had this big event. You waste too much money on a big treasure chest of cards, and one of the things you get is an invitation to that party. So I happened to be one of the last guys, and having played in college, he and I we sit there, we talk for like 15 minutes about load management. Because he's like, load management, man, that's what happens when you pull your hamstring. You don't just take a day off. And he went off, and he and I were talking back and forth about it. So to meet him and do that. But then the other thing they give you is they give you your own Topps baseball card, a 1-of-1. So that's at PSA. That's coming back. That will be like your graded card of yourself. Like that's my only baseball card, and I got awesome. Junior with me. So
we all have them. I've been very blessed with the ability to talk to some really cool people in the game. I'd love to sit down and chat. I mean, obviously I'm not a hitter, but just talking to a guy like that that I idolize, him and Barry Bonds are two guys that I would love to, from a hitting standpoint, that I'd love to talk to. I had in my career, I had the very good fortunes of having a great conversation with Randy Johnson at Coors Field. I had faced off against him. He was with the Diamondbacks. I think this was his second go around with the Diamondbacks, where he was still getting paid for the first go around, and he was getting paid on the second. So he went 5 and dive, and I threw 8. I gave up a 3-run bomb to Connor Jackson on a changeup that I hung to left field, and we lost 3-0. I threw 8 innings, gave up 3 runs, and lost. So the next day I go into the weight room to do my lifting, and he's in there lifting with the Diamondback strength coach. And just kind of in passing, I was like, "Hey, Randy, nice job last night." And an hour later, our conversation ended. And, awesome. And I had heard all these stories that Randy Johnson's an asshole, and, he's really mean, and this, that, and the other. He won't give anybody time of day. And I walked away from that conversation going, dude, that was like the most amazing thing I've ever done. Like, he was super cool. He was honest. He gave me some great advice on how to, keep getting better in life and in my career. And so he ends up leaving. I thank him, shake his hand. Again, I didn't get a picture. I should have. But again, the mental pictures are.
That's the part that matters. Yep.
So I get done, and Brad Andrews, who's our strength coach at the time, he comes up to me and he looks at me and goes, "Dude," he goes, "cherish that moment, because he doesn't do that to just anybody.
Right.
He only talks to people he likes." Yeah. And I was like, "All right." He goes, "After he came out of the game last night in the 5th inning, he sat in the dugout for the next 3 watching you pitch." So clearly he likes something that he saw.
He saw something,
right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was one of those kinds of moments in my career where I was like, dude, that was pretty neat. Like, that didn't have to happen, but it did, and I will always remember that.
I mean, one of the moments in our lives that none of us will forget is John Kruk batting against him in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And he throws the one over his head, probably on purpose. And then Crucky puts his helmet on backwards. He's like, all right, this is a circus.
We're done with this one. You can have that one. That's it. I'm done. Mail it in.
Humanity. It's just humanity. And, the unit in the day was just, in my opinion, him and Nolan Ryan were the two guys that
nobody wanted guys
they got in the box and it was already over.
Yep. They had beaten them by association. That was it.
Exactly. Yeah, they knew what was going on.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm recording this at home and I'm getting the 5-ish minute warning. I've heard about the things you didn't get. You didn't get Griffey, you didn't get Randy. So you're in the dugout, you're in the locker room, you've got all these guys. So what did you get? I see some skiing posters behind you.
Yeah, that's my wife's stuff. I don't ski. My knees are shot. So my coolest piece of memorabilia that I ever got. So in baseball, for the most part, if you want a baseball, like say you're an opposing player and you want a baseball from another player on the other team, typically you go to the clubby, your clubby, say, hey, in my case, it was Schultze. I say, hey, Schultze, can you get me a ball from, Greg Maddux, right? And so that's kind of where one of my favorite pieces is my Greg Maddux ball. So I'm in San Diego. It's opening day 2007. I beat Greg Maddux. And after the game, LaTroy Hawkins comes over to me and goes, dude, you should get a ball. You should get Maddux to sign a ball for you. And I looked at Hawk. I said, would he do that? And Hawk played with him in Chicago. I said, Hawk, would he do that for you or for me? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, you guys are exactly the same. Very cerebral. Like he'd love to do it for you. I was like, all right, sweet. So I told the club, I was like, hey, will you get Maddux to sign a ball for me? He goes, sure. So he takes a ball and I grabbed a ball out of the game bucket. So I wanted to make sure I got a game used ball. And so I gave it to the clubby. 2 days later, we're getting ready to leave and I get this tap on my shoulder and I turn around and the guy hands me the ball and I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, it looks like a batting practice ball or whatever, but as long as he signed it, cool. So I turn it over and Maddux had wrote in the horseshoe, it says, fuck your game ball, blow shit. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe I just pissed off Greg Maddux. Like one of my idols as a kid, I can't believe that I pissed him off and LaTroy told me to do this and I just made a fool of myself, right? And so I'm packing up all my stuff, mad at myself. And then the clubby comes back over and hands me the ball that I had sent over there and right across the sweet spot, it's signed by Greg Maddux. And I'm sitting there going, all right, they're like, this clearly was a joke. This is rookie hazing to the
yeah, I'll say you're initiated.
Yeah. So I'm dressed in my suit, right? My bags are packed. I've got the first ball that he sent me, and I walk over to the food room, and LaTroy's sitting down in a chair, and I threw the ball at him. I said, hey, Hawk, look what Maddux sent over to me. And he looked at it and read it, and he fell out of his chair laughing. He goes, dude, that's such a Maddux thing to do. And that's my favorite piece of memorabilia.
That's awesome.
I do have baseballs from other guys that I've collected over the years. I've got, Vin Scully was one of my, I grew up a Dodgers fan in Southern California. So I've got a great picture of Vin Scully and a ball signed by him. Oral Hershiser was my favorite pitcher as a kid. I've got a great picture of him and I when we were doing the TV broadcast together. So that kind of stuff is stuff that I'll always cherish and that I have. And then obviously I've got a brain full of memories.
Yeah. And those memories are worth more than every signed piece of memorabilia you got.
Yeah, there's some great stories on some of that signed memorabilia, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, ultimately, that's the thing that we keep talking about in collectibles. It's like I have a personal collection. It's pretty extensive, but it's all memories with me and my dad or events I was at, and it's a card of the guy.
That are important to you.
Exactly,
right?
They're memory joggers.
At the end of the day, that's in this hobby of card collecting and memorabilia stuff. It's stuff that's important to you. Some people just collect it because it's valuable. I collect memories.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's I can tell those stories to you guys and you guys get a kick out of it because you may have never heard anything like it before.
Right.
It just gives you it gives you more insight to certain players that you maybe didn't know about. You guys may have thought, Randy Johnson was a prick. And here you find out that he's actually not as mean as everybody told you he is, right? It's just, it changes your perspective on certain individuals and just gives you an appreciation for, one, how difficult this game is, but two, the types of personalities that play any sport or, at any high level. You've got to be able to laugh and have fun because if you don't, it's a long, long season.
Yeah, so let's talk to us about, we got to wrap up, I know, and Mike's going to point. Tell us about FAST.
Sure. So Fast Performance, we opened up a brand new shop last year, 2020, conveniently, just in time for a pandemic to kick open. But
Where?
it's a culmination of, we're in Northeast Denver. I give you the address. We'll put it in the show notes for you.
Okay.
But fastcolorado.com is our website. It's a culmination of the baseball training side, which is something that I've grown and developed since the Jason Hirsh Pitching Academy, and the strength and conditioning side with my business partners, Joel and JC, who've worked with NFL, Olympic professional athletes their entire careers. And we wanted everything under one roof. And so that's what Fast Performance is. From a baseball standpoint, we are the only player development facility in town. We don't run teams. My goal is to get your kid better, whether that's throwing faster, more accurate, more pitch types, or better pitch types. We use a lot of really cool technology and assessments where we're not just doing pitching lessons, we do player development. Your kid comes in, we're going to do a movement screen. We're going to do an evaluation of their mechanics and make sure everything's clean. We're going to get baseline metrics using Rapsodo or TrackMan that we have available to us. And then we develop a program specifically individualized to that athlete. So all of our programs are on our website at fastcolorado.com. Our Instagram handle is Fast Baseball. That's where we do a majority of our teaching through social media or posting on social media. Yes, we can be very sarcastic on there, but we have a lot of fun, kind of poking fun at the industry. And
Sure.
There's some things that we do different that people don't think is right. And I'm happy to have conversations with people about player development all day long. So, but yeah, that's where you can find information about us and where to go, and check out our website. If you ever just want to come by and check out the facility, we'd love to have you guys come stop by, hit on the hit tracks or something like that. Just see if you guys can still do it.
As a pitcher, as a hitter, I'm a hell of a pitcher.
Yeah. That's why I tell people is like, hey, listen, I can't teach you how to hit, but I can teach you how to bunt.
Yeah. I can teach you how to swing real hard, but I can't teach you about contact.
That's it. So,
well, Jason, thank you very much for joining us. Mike, if you want some words.
This is the least amount I've ever heard Mike talk.
I know, it's scary, isn't it?
I've got my wife like 5 feet to my right, like banging on the door for me to go. So, yeah, that's why I'm afraid over here. Jason, thanks for giving up your morning. I really appreciate it. So you're our first athlete we've had on here. We don't count it on, unfortunately. So thank you.
And we shouldn't.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. And like I said, obviously we've covered quite a range of topics here, but anytime you want me back, I'm more than happy to chat. And Mike, I'll probably see you back in the shop sometime here in the near future, because my kid had an absolute blast digging through your piles of cards.
That's great. So Jason, thank you very much. So thanks everyone who listened, and thank you for joining us on this episode of The Card Shop.